The 49ers are here at Levi Stadium where they're going to look to improve to 7-4 on the season. We'll get into everything they're going to need to do in order to be able to make that happen today, next on the Jack Hammer Show. Hey everybody, it's Jack Hammer. I'm here at Levi Stadium. Big day today for the 49ers. They're looking to go 7-4 on the season as they take on the New Orleans Saints. If the 49ers can win today, it'll be their first 4-game winning streak since 2019. Think about that for a second. 2019, there were some good things that happened in that season for the 49ers. Got all the way to the Super Bowl, won the NFC Championship game here in Santa Clara on the route to get into that game in Miami back in 2019. So big day for the 49ers today. We'll get into all of the things that they're going to need to do. We'll answer some of your questions in the comment section if you have anything. Wanted to just throw out a couple of the guests that are in here. We have Raphael 5629ers, a member of the Toolbox, who says, "What's up, Jack?" Members of the Toolbox and everyone, good to have him on board. Raphael, thank you for joining. We also have Lucas Pesci, another member of the Toolbox, says, "Hey, Jack." Lucas comes to us from Austria. He's ready to go. He's excited for this one. And then we have Scott Alexander as well. He says, "I hope this is not a trap game." I agree. I think it could be a trap game in a lot of ways for the 49ers. Let me talk about that just for a second. I mean, you're looking at a team that just played on Monday night in Mexico City. A lot of travel on the way back. They didn't get back into Santa Clara until I think it was around 6:30 in the morning, Tuesday morning. The first couple of practices this week on Wednesday and Thursday were very light walkthrough type of practices. They didn't have the first full speed practice until Friday. You look at they've been pretty healthy coming into this week, but the one area that they weren't was Deebo Samuel. He did not practice with the team. He was limited, I should say, in limited participant in practice all week long, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The good news, though, is as Marcel the Goat asked, he asks, is Deebo Samuel playing? Deebo Samuel is playing. Yes, Deebo will be active today. That is the expectation, is that Deebo Samuel will be healthy and going for the 49ers today. I believe that's the same with Alvin Kamara. We'll get a little bit more information on Kamara as the morning progresses. Game starts at 1:25, so check back right around 11:55. That is 90 minutes prior to game time. That's when we know who the actives and inactives are. So we'll be able to answer that one for you for sure. But I can speak fairly definitively that Deebo Samuel will be playing for the 49ers today. We also have TC says, "What's up, Jack? Hey, how's it going?" And then we have Scott Browse, who's got to break the week away curse, or 1-5 in home games, following a week away from California under Shanahan. And the win versus Pittsburgh was a fluke. I remember that. That was back in 2019. That was when there was turnovers galore from the 49ers, and they were able to take advantage of Pittsburgh, playing with Mason Rudolph, and in order to come back in that one and get the win late. As far as the week away, a little bit different this time in that they weren't gone for a couple of week road trip. It wasn't on the East Coast, so I don't think the time zone change is quite the issue that it was back in those other ones that you're talking about where they take those long trips. But still, I mentioned it already. The travel back from Mexico City, I think, is a lot rougher than anybody would want to be dealing with on a short week going into this. So I think this is a tough one for the 49ers in terms of the travel for sure. So, Scott, you might be onto something there. And then Marcel the Great asks, are the Niners a Super Bowl team? I think so. And I think we'll find out based off of how they perform today, because the Super Bowl level teams take advantage of games like this. They're 6-4, playing against a team that's under 500, that has struggled all season long. This is the kind of game that if you're a Super Bowl team, I think you go out and you put this one away. You know, the Saints come in at 4-7, but I think this is the type of game that if you're a Super Bowl team, you come out and win this game at home. John asks, do you think Armstead will play sometime this season? I do. Eric Armstead returned to practice on Friday. That was the first time that we've really seen him on the practice field. since he started dealing with these foot and ankle injuries. So I do think that we'll see Armstead play sometime this season. I think it could even come next week. That would be my guess, is that he's going to play against either Miami or Tampa Bay. So he's going to play at some point on this 3-game homestand prior to going up to Seattle for that short week. So I would definitely expect to see Arik Armstead back this season. The bigger question here for the 49ers isn't Arik Armstead, it's Javon Kinlaw. Will we see Javon Kinlaw back on the field? I think that's the bigger question of the defensive line for the 49ers. Kinlaw dealing with those knee injuries. It just seems like it's a never-ending story for Javon Kinlaw. So I do think that we'll see Armstead on the field soon. As far as Javon Kinlaw, I think that's a little bit more of a question mark right now. Is Jimmy Garoppolo a top 10 quarterback? Well, here's the thing. When you look at this, if you want to, it depends on how you want to base it. If you want to just base it off of belief, or do you want to base it off of data, those types of things. Jimmy Garoppolo, when you look at the quarterbacks in the NFL and you look at the numbers, he's top 10 in almost every category when it comes to statistics. The thing with the 49ers, it's a little interesting. They don't throw the ball quite as much as other teams. So when it comes to yards, total yards, he's not going to be very high. He might not even be very high in total touchdowns, because as far as from throwing, just because they don't throw the ball at quite the same rate as the majority of quarterbacks in the NFL. So when you look at Garoppolo, you need to look at things like yards per attempt. For me, I really like to look at net yards per attempt, because that takes into account the full passing game. So that's not necessarily just a Jimmy Garoppolo stat as much as it is a full passing game stat. So you have like the yards per attempt, completion percentage, touchdown percentage, interception percentage, those types of things. And when you look at Jimmy Garoppolo across the board, he's top 10 in just about everything, including interception percentage, which I believe, which is a change for him. Usually he's not that high in that regard, but he's been pretty good with the ball this year so far. 15 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, and having only 4 interceptions, that's the biggest thing with Garoppolo, because if he can limit the mistakes, it really opens up things for the rest of this offense, and really for the 49ers, the way they're built, having a quarterback that just limits mistakes but can make some plays as well, like we've seen, is what's going to get them deep into the playoffs, because they're still going to be a run-heavy team. They're still going to be doing all those things, but they really need to have a quarterback that doesn't make the big mistake. And then we have Black 59 Razor. Dalton and Olave will work the 49ers secondary. I think this one can go either way. Black 59 Razor, this is a good one too. This is a really good comment, in that you look at the way the Saints have played this year. They're not a bad team. They're not for a team that's 4-7. They do a lot of things really well. The problem that they have is they don't hold on to the ball. They're one of the worst teams in terms of turnovers. I think they have the 3rd most turnovers in the league, and they don't take the ball away. I think they're 31st or 32nd in terms of takeaways. So that's where the Saints have struggled. Is they are minus 12, I believe, is the number coming into today. And that's the thing. And it's always the thing with the 49ers, is if they can win the turnover battle, they usually win. If they don't win the turnover battle, they usually lose. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of with the Saints, even with Andy Dalton at quarterback. Olave is a really good playmaker. We'll get into this a little bit more in terms of, I think the Saints have the potential to really the offense has the potential to really challenge the 49ers defense with the weapons they have in Olave, the tight end, Alvin Kamara as well. They have guys at all levels that can really threaten the 49ers secondary. So let's just get into it really quick. Like I said, these are my 5 keys for the game. We're going to do a couple of offensive, and then we'll get into some defense. I'll definitely take some more of your comments. Let's just start off really quick with because we already went there with the last question from Black 59 Razor. So my first one is, can the 49ers which team's going to hold on to the ball? And I just talked about it, and this is one of those things where I've repeated this a number of times this year. I'll probably keep saying it every week, because I just think no matter with all the different things that we talk about, here's what we know. We know that the 49ers are a talented team. They're good at the quarterback position. They have really good skill position guys. You look at their offensive line, it's a high-level offensive line. Defensive side of the ball, they're very good on defense as well. But the one thing for the 49ers more than anything if you want to know whether they're going to win or lose, just look at their turnovers. If the 49ers turn the ball over more than their opponents since the start of last season, they're 1-9. When they either are tied in the turnovers or they take the ball away more than their opponents, they are 17-3. So if the 49ers can win or tie the turnover battle, they win 17 out of 20 games. When they lose the turnover battle, they are 1 out of every 10. So there's a big discrepancy there. We know that Garoppolo has gone 3 games without an interception for the first time in his career. Today he's going to be facing an New Orleans defense, which has been able to record only 2 interceptions all season. So that's a positive for the 49ers. They aren't very good at getting interceptions, are the Saints. But when you flip it around, the other thing, too, when you look at the Saints is they only have 2 interceptions. Their turnovers this season, they have 7 takeaways. 5 of their takeaways are from fumbles. And the 49ers have struggled, especially earlier on in the season. They've gotten a little bit better in the last couple of weeks, but they have struggled with putting the ball on the ground. So I think today, if the 49ers are going to maybe have turnovers, I think it's more likely that it's going to come from a fumble than it is from a Garoppolo mistake. Knock on wood with that one somewhere. I don't have any wood around me, but I'll find some here when I'm done. But for the Saints, turnovers, like I said, have been the issue all season. They come into today, the turnover differential is 12. They have 19 turnovers on the season. That's 3rd highest in the league, and they only have 7 takeaways. That's the 2nd fewest. So turnovers are going to be a big part of this. And so when you look at like what Black 59 Razor said as far as Chris Olave and Andy Dalton, I think it really comes down to the turnovers, though. Because I do think that the Saints have a strong roster, as Scott Broyle says in the comment section. The Saints have an A- roster, but a bad head coach, playoff talent, which can show up any week. And I agree with that. I think they're very similar to, I wouldn't say that it's because of the coaching staff, but the 49ers, even back in 2020, were a really good team that was just a quarterback away from being a playoff team. If they just had a quarterback that didn't turn the ball over repeatedly. As far as the Dalton and Olave, let's get into that one next. Because I really think this is another key point for the 49ers. So when you look at the Saints record, don't fool yourself. This offense is potent. Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, and then the tight end is Juwan Johnson. Dalton has thrown 14 touchdown passes in just 8 games. That's right on pace with what we've seen from Jimmy Garoppolo in his 9 games. That trio gives the New Orleans passing game an attack that can go at all levels of the defense. They can attack you deep with Olave. They can work underneath with Johnson and Kamara. Olave has impressed. He's averaging 14.9 yards per reception this year. He has 51 grabs, so he can take the top off the defense. He's a guy that can get down the field and he can really stretch you out. And then after you have that, with Olave stretching you out, then you have Kamara and Johnson, and they really put a lot of stress on the defense at the level of the safeties and the linebackers, that middle underneath level. So they can really stretch you vertically and across the field. Kamara and Johnson team up to stress that underneath pass coverage. Like I said, despite missing a couple of games, Kamara is the Saints' 2nd leading receiver. He has 43 catches for 385 yards. And then Johnson, he's an interesting one because he's in his 3rd season as Juwan Johnson. His first 2 years in the NFL, he was a wide receiver, but he's made a successful transition to tight end this year. He leads the Saints in touchdown grabs with 5, and he's blown past all of his numbers from the first 2 years. He's far and away better than those. But like I said, when he gets into the red zone, you're going to want to watch out for a couple of things, and it starts with Juwan Johnson in terms of receiving. He is their leading touchdown guy through the air for New Orleans. And then on the run game, I know Alvin Kamara is the focus there. He leads the Saints in rushing yards, but it's Taysom Hill that you need to look at. So first off, my first one was the turnover battle. Who wins that? My second one is, can the 49ers? My second key today, things that the 49ers do is they need to be able to slow down Andy Dalton in the passing game for the Saints. One other thing really quick before I move on to the running game, Taysom Hill. 49ers have played Andy Dalton in the past. You got to remember, just a couple of years ago in 2020, Andy Dalton, the quarterback, was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys when the 49ers went into Dallas and lost to the Cowboys. And you remember Andy Dalton had some really good plays in that one, moving out to his right through a deep ball. He's been able to work against this 49ers defense. And so I wouldn't expect to see him just lay down and not play well. So I would think this is a game that's going to be a struggle for the 49ers defense, really going to show us where they are at this point. And then on the running side, can the 49ers stop Taysom Hill? I understand you have Kamara. He leads the Saints in rushing yards. But, again, it's Taysom Hill who is the guy that scores the touchdown. So the Saints are an interesting group. Their big-name guys aren't the ones that are getting in the red zone. They get a lot of the yardage, and when they get in there and they need to score, you got Taysom Hill that puts it in the end zone. You got Juwan Johnson that puts it in the end zone in the passing game. And stopping Hill in short yard situations is tough because he does so many different things. He's a really tough inside runner. He can get outside on you as well. And then you also have the threat of him pulling up and throwing the ball. And so being able to stop him in short yard situations is going to be key for this defense to avoid extended drives. He's going to put a lot of pressure on that 49ers defense, especially the linebackers and secondary. Once again, because of that running game, he's going to put stress on that defensive line as well. One thing about Hill, he's not a proven threat, though, in the passing game. He's only been targeted 6 times all season. So when Taysom Hill comes into the game, you don't really have to worry about him being the guy that's going to catch the ball and make the big play. Maybe they're setting the 49ers up, and that's what we'll see that all of a sudden pop up. But if you look throughout the course of the season, he only has 6 targets, so it's unlikely that you're going to see the ball go to Taysom Hill on a pass play. Thanks, Lawrence. I really appreciate you over there. Stephen says, is Hill like CMC? No, I don't think so, because Christian McCaffrey has that ability to he has the ability to do it all, right? He's a tough runner inside. He has the ability to throw the ball, obviously, and get the ball off like that. But then he also has the ability to make the catches in the passing game, and that's like we just got done saying. You don't see Taysom Hill make plays in the passing game as a receiver. Christian McCaffrey does. I would say Christian McCaffrey is a much better weapon overall than a guy like Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's a good football player. That's the best way to put it. He's not a quarterback. He's not a running back. He's not a receiver. He's just a really solid football player and a guy who can really make it tough on your defense just because of his ability to do different things. And like Glinzer says over here, will the Friars get their 4th straight second half shutout? That's another interesting one, right? Been talking a lot. I have been on my Twitter feed in terms of past 49ers success, and a lot of it was geared around the quarterbacks. I got into the defense a little bit over the last couple of days, and you look back at the 49ers Super Bowl teams of the early 80s, not even the early 80s, the 80s, 81, 84, 88, and 89. Those first 4 Super Bowl teams with Joe Montana, you look at those teams and you look at what they did, and in their Super Bowl wins, in their Super Bowl games themselves, the 49ers defense gave up an average of 8.8 points per game. That's pretty dang good, right? And you look like even the 88 team, that defense gave up 1 touchdown throughout the entire postseason. It was early on in the first game against the Vikings. They gave up a touchdown. The Bears, they did not allow a touchdown by the Bears. Against the Bengals in the Super Bowl, the only touchdown came on the special teams kickoff return. So it'll be interesting to see if this defense can get to those kind of levels, and pitching a 4th straight shutout in the second half today would be a big key to that. So we'll see how the defense performs in this one. And I do think that, I've seen a few folks say it, and Tommy Huxley's over here repeating himself. He's saying that he thinks this is a trap game in it. It could be a trap game. And I think if it's a trap game, it's because of the travel that's involved. It's more than the opponent. I think the 49ers take their opponent seriously, but in this one, I think if you're looking at this as a trap game, it's mostly because they got in 6:30 in the morning on Tuesday after playing on Monday night, and so their practice schedule's been a little wonky this week. Let's switch gears really quick. Let's take a look at the offensive side of the ball. And I mentioned it earlier, Jimmy Garoppolo, how well he's been playing this year with 15 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. You'd ask where I thought he was. He ranks right around the top 10 in a lot of statistical categories. I would say he's probably in that range if you want to look at him as an overall quarterback. The way that he's playing is at a pretty high level. He matched his career high with 4 touchdown passes against the Cardinals. And Garoppolo hadn't done that since 2019. He did it 3 times that season when they went to the Super Bowl. And he hadn't done it since. He was able to put that up against the Cardinals on Monday night. Of his 3 times that he's done it now, actually he's done it 4 times as a starter in his career. 3 of the 4 times have been against the Cardinals. He also had one other one in 2019. I don't remember who the opponent was, but 3 of the 4 times that he's gone to 4 touchdowns have been against the Cardinals. Today, he's going to be facing a Saints defense that's allowed only 13 touchdown passes this season. The biggest thing, though, with that is that they're allowing only 5.8 net yards per pass attempt, which is really good, 8th best in the NFL. So part of the reason why the Saints have such a good pass defense and why they've only are allowing 5.8 net yards per attempt is because of their pass rush. Their pass rush gets after the quarterback really good. So when we look at if Jimmy Garoppolo can stay hot, a lot of this is going to depend on how the offensive line does. If they're able to handle the New Orleans pass rush. You have Cam Jordan, and then linebackers Demario Davis and Caden Ellis. Those are the top 3 guys for the Saints in terms of sacks. New Orleans has recorded a sack on 8.58% of dropbacks by opposing quarterbacks. That's 6th best in the NFL. The 49ers have, it's right behind where the 49ers are. But again, it's in the top quarter of the NFL with their pass rush. So this 49ers offensive line is going to have their hands full when it comes to that pass rush piece. And so I think we're going to see the run game be leaned on maybe a little bit heavier. Maybe you see a little bit more of a screen. Running game was more of your screens and those types of things, those easy underneath throws that guys like Christian McCaffrey can really help the 49ers out with. Deebo Samuel, if he's healthy, can do those as well. So definitely something to look at for today. But is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be able to keep it going? But more importantly than Jimmy Garoppolo, it's can the 49ers offensive line keep Garoppolo clean? They did a very good job of that against the Cardinals on Monday night. He was only hit 4 times. And you're facing a team here with, like I said, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Caden Ellis. They lead the Saints, who have recorded a sack on 8.58% of their dropbacks. As I mentioned, that's 6th best in the NFL. So keep an eye out for that Saints pass rush today on Jimmy Garoppolo. On the other side of it, you got the passing game. Now, can the 49ers offense keep the run game turning? They were really good on Monday night against the Cardinals. They averaged 6.8 yards per carry when the starters were in. It wasn't until the backups came in later on about halfway through the 4th quarter that yards per carry average really dropped. But the Niners starters averaged 6.8 yards per carry against Arizona on Monday night. They had helped out obviously by the big run from Deebo Samuel. There was also a big run from Christian McCaffrey for 20 yards, a 19-yard burst around the side as well for Elijah Mitchell. But you look at this game today, and the Saints come in and they've allowed the 10th most rushing yards per attempt. They've allowed 4.6 yards per carry this season. So if the 49ers can get in there and they can run the ball, you've got a really good 1-2-3 punch with the 49ers. You have Christian McCaffrey, who gives you that speed element, the receiving element out of the backfield. He gives you that explosiveness. And then you have Elijah Mitchell, who's a little bit more of a between the tackles guy. When I look at this, their yards per attempt is going to be different, but McCaffrey's the guy who's going to be able to get you around the edge more often than Mitchell is. Mitchell's going to be really good between the tackles. Every once in a while, he's going to get you around the edge, but it's not all that often. But between McCaffrey and Mitchell, you have a really nice 1-2 punch, and then you throw in Deebo Samuel every once in a while. He only had 2 carries out of the backfield, the Deebo Samuel against the Cardinals he only had 1 carry out of the backfield against the Cardinals on Monday night. Lined up in the backfield a number of times, but he only had that 1 carry. His other 2 carries came from the wide receiver position on the end around. So, you look at this, and the way that this thing matches up is I think the 49ers are going to be able to run the ball quite a bit today. I think you're going to see maybe a little bit more run heavy, a little bit pass heavy in the beginning, but then they're going to transition to a more run heavy attack. They're really going to want to run the ball as much as they can. That's kind of their cadence, especially when they're successful, is that they run the ball really well. They've got to be able to protect Jimmy Garoppolo, slow down Andy Dalton, keep Taysom Hill out of the end zone, and hold on to the ball. Those are your 5 keys for the 49ers today. Let me check over here and see if there are any Steven says Shanahan needs to stop running McCaffrey up the gut. He needs to do more kickouts to the left or right, not feed them to the grinder. But that's the thing. You've got to be able. These guys have to be able to run inside and out, because otherwise you telegraph what you're going to do. And that's part of where I think the 49ers got with Deebo Samuel was they were pretty much telegraphing that anytime Samuel was in the backfield early on, the ball was going to go outside if it was going to him. Now with McCaffrey, and what we've seen is him, all of a sudden Debo's running more up the middle. But when it comes to Christian McCaffrey, he's a really good running back between the tackles. He does a good job in there. I understand what you're saying, because the grind there is. When we say the grind, you're talking about the grinder as far as just the pounding in there. For the 49ers, I think Elijah Mitchell is the grinder guy for the 49ers offense. He is your big, brutal running back. So we'll see how it goes. I don't totally agree with that, but I get where you're going. You definitely want to be careful with keeping him healthy. Tommy Huxley, thank you for the super chat. Does Jimmy throw a pick today? Please no. Tommy, I just hit on that one a second ago, right? The Saints have only got 2 interceptions all season this year. Two times. They've only picked off, they've had 7 turnovers total, 2 interceptions, 5 fumbles. So I think this is a game where, is Jimmy Garoppolo going to throw a pick today? I would say probably not. It'll be interesting if he does, because against Monday night was the first time in his career that he's gone 3 games without an interception. Today would make it 4. So we'll see how that all works out. But I love the super chat. I get it. I get where you're coming from, and I thank you for that. I appreciate it. Jaguayo, hey, how you doing? Been a while. Thank you for the super chat. Says, is Lenoir starting at corner? Is Debo playing? Yeah, Lenoir will be the starting. Just know this: Diameter Lenoir is going to start at corner for the 49ers the rest of the way, as long as he's healthy. The 49ers don't have anybody better than him on the outside, so it's going to be Diameter Lenoir and Charvarius Ward as long as those 2 are healthy. They're going to be your starting outside corners. And then as far as the question about Debo Samuel, yes, he will be playing. He was limited throughout this week, but they expect him to be playing today, and I would expect to see him active for the 49ers today. So thank you really much there, Jaguayo. Hope you have a good time watching this game. Scott Broyle says that Mason's carries look strong. Yes, Jordan Mason is a solid running back. Really, like his style. He's somebody that I think really fits with the 49ers. And in some ways, I would rather see Jordan Mason getting carries instead of Debo Samuel. I think, again, I get it, though, because you're able to move Samuel around, and I don't mind him being in the backfield as long as you're using him more as a receiver in there. And there's just not enough snaps and those types of things to really get your third back in tune with the way that they go about their business. So Mason does look like a good back. He's a solid third guy for the 49ers, and in some ways I definitely think that Jordan Mason is a better fit for the 49ers system. Said this from the beginning. I was not a big fan of the draft pick for the kid out of LSU, but Jordan Mason looks very strong. So, and Tommy, you're right. Jordan, 6 yards a carry for Samuel. That's Samuel's an interesting one, because his yards per carry is high, but it's not a consistent number. Like if we look at Elijah Mitchell, his yards per carry, 5.7 or whatever the number is for Elijah Mitchell, those are pretty consistent. He's consistently giving you 4, 5, 9, 3, 6, those types of things, right? He's constantly giving you positives. There's very few times where you see Elijah Mitchell get dropped for no gain. Whereas with Debo Samuel, he's a little bit more hit and miss. He's a guy who it's usually with Samuel, it's 10 minus 2, those kinds of things. Where is how he gets to his numbers. It's usually, it's not very consistent. It seems like it's very much all or nothing when it comes to the running game with Debo Samuel there. But he's a really good fit for everything they do. And as far as this hamstring, Harold, it looks like it's good enough that he's going to be going today. So there you have it. My keys, once again, I'll run through them really quick for you. And then also I'll give you my prediction. I haven't done that either. So number 1, Garoppolo needs to stay hot. He needs to keep this thing rolling. And as part of that, the 49ers offensive line needs to protect him. They need to do a good job here. The Saints, 6th best in the NFL when it comes to sack percentage. Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis, Caden Ellis leading the way. The 49ers offense got to keep that run game going with Mitchell and McCaffrey and Debo Samuel. McCaffrey just does so many things for you because he also helps out passing game as well. That's a lot of where his value comes in. He's a little bit more split than everybody else, or at least Elijah Mitchell. Can the 49ers defense slow down Andy Dalton? Again, Dalton has some good weapons there, and Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara, and then tight end Juwan Johnson. Keep an eye on those 3. This isn't like last week where the 49ers just need to shut down DeAndre Hopkins in order to stop the Cardinals offense. This is a they have options at various levels, and I think that they can really stress this defense if they don't turn the ball over. And then they need to be able to stop Taysom Hill. Again, Alvin Kamara is the leading rusher, but Hill's the guy that leads the Saints in rushing touchdowns, so they need to keep him out of the end zone. That's what it's all about. And then last but not least, holding onto the ball. The Saints come into today with a turnover differential of -12. If they don't turn the ball over today, it's going to be hard for the 49ers to win. But I do think that they'll make a mistake here and there. So overall, let me give you my prediction of this one. I think the 49ers are going to win this game. I think they're going to score 27 points, and I think the Saints are going to get to 17. So my prediction is 49ers 27, Saints 17. You look at the 49ers, and I mentioned this earlier in the week. When Nick Bosa starts, in his 9 starts, they've only allowed over 19 points once. The only team that's gotten over 19 points against the 49ers this season when Nick Bosa has started was the Kansas City Chiefs, and that was a game in which the defense as a whole really fell apart in that one. But other than that, when Nick Bosa's on the field, they give up only 19 points. I have a hard time seeing the Saints get over that number today. Just, again, you're going to see Nick Bosa. Samson Ebukam is back as well. So 49ers defense is about as healthy as you can get, minus Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw. But this is a very, very talented 49ers defense. I think they hold the Saints to 17. And I think the 49ers, they have enough firepower between their running game and passing game that they can get to 27. That seems to be their number lately. They've been right around, I think they're at 20.5 over the last 4 weeks. So 27 is just below that. If the 49ers are right in the ballpark with getting to 30 points a game. So they're playing at a pretty high level on offense. So there's my story for today. 49ers 27, Saints 17. You got the keys as well. Hope you guys all enjoy your game. Keep it locked in here to the channel. And then also get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. There'll be the live blog going on throughout the game with analysis and updates throughout. So if you want to get my take on what's happening, check out the live blog at 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. And then after the game, come back over here and join me up. I'm going to be doing my post-game show as well. We'll go through those keys, how the 49ers fared and around that, and then also just give you kind of some overview of the game, and I'll answer all your questions again as well. So thank you all so much for taking the time to watch. Hit that like button for me on your way out if you can. And also, if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you just happened upon it today, hit that subscribe button as well. Let your friends and family know as well. The more people that we get over here on the Jack Hammer channel for YouTube, the better, and we can help out the 49ers fans with getting all the information that they want to see on a regular basis. Take care, everybody. Have a great Sunday. We'll talk soon.